Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to see a history of travel writing. Whenever we hear the phrase travel writing, we usually think of blogs, Instagram posts, YouTube travel vlogs, or books describing beautiful places. But travel writing is much older than that. In fact, it is one of the oldest forms of storytelling in human history. People have always traveled for survival, religion, trade, education, exploration, and for adventure. Wherever they travel, they carried stories with them. Those stories gradually become what we now call travel literature. In today's lecture, we will trace the fascinating journey of travel writing from prehistoric migration stories to modern digital travel blogs or vlogs. By the end of this lecture, you will understand how travel writing has evolved across different historical periods and why it remains an important literary genre today. Let us begin at the very beginning as the history. Travel writing did not start with books, it started with human movement. Thousands of years ago, early humans migrated in search of food, water, shelter, and safer living conditions. Although they did not write books, they shared their experiences orally. These migration stories were probably the first travel narratives in history. As civilizations developed, travel stories entered literature. One of the earliest examples is the Epic of Gilgamesh, where the hero travels in search of wisdom and immorality. Similarly, Homer's Iliad and especially the Odyssey describe long and dangerous journeys. Odysseus' voyage pays a kind of a new venture to travel writing after the Trojan War is one of the greatest travel narratives ever written. Later, Greek historians like Herodotus, often called the father of history, traveled widely and recorded the customs, geography, and culture of different lands. His work combined observation, storytelling, and historical documentation. So, from the beginning, travel writing was not just about places, it was about discovering the unknown. During the Middle Ages, travel was mainly connected with religion, pilgrimage, and trade. One important traveler was the Chinese Buddhist monk Faxian, who traveled from China to India between 399 and 412 CE. In his book, A Record of Buddhist Kingdoms, provides valuable information about ancient India, Buddhism, education, and society. Another important traveler was Nazir Khusro, a Persian scholar. His travel account called Safarnama describes his journey through the Islamic world with remarkable detail. His observations included architecture, governance, religion, and everyday life. These writers did much more than simply describing the landscapes. They documented different culture, tradition, languages, and belief, making their works valuable as historical records. Thus, medieval travel writing became an important bridge between civilizations. The next major development came during the age of exploration between 13th and 18th centuries. Perhaps the most famous traveler of this period is Marco Polo. His book, The Travels of Marco Polo, introduced European readers to China, India, and many parts of Asia. Whether every detail was accurate is still debated, but the book inspired curiosity, exploration, and even later, the explorers like Christopher Columbus they followed the book. As European nations explored Africa, Asia, and Americas, travel accounts multiply rapidly. These writings often combine facts with imagination. They informed readers about unknown lands, but also reflected European colonial attitudes. Some description exaggerated the exotic nature of foreign culture. Therefore, travel writing during this period became a both of source of knowledge and a tool that sometimes supported colonial expansion. Between 16th and 18th centuries, a new tradition developed in Europe known as the Grand Tour. The young British aristocrats they traveled across Europe, especially to Italy, after completing their formal education. Cities like Rome, Florence, and Venice become centers of art, architecture, and classical learning. Until earlier travelers who traveled for survival or religion, these travelers journeyed for education, cultural refinement, and personal development. Travel writing, therefore, became more reflective. Writers discussed art, history, literature, and their own intellectual growth. Travel gradually became a symbol of education and social status. The 19th century completely transformed travel. New inventions such as steamships and railways made travel faster, safer, and cheaper. For the first time, ordinary middle class people could travel relatively easily. As travel became more accessible, travel writing also became more democratic. Two important writers of this period are Charles Manton Doughty, who wrote Travels in Arabia Deserta, and Lafcadio Hearn, whose glimpses of unfamiliar Japan introduced Japanese culture to Western readers. Travel writers now paid greater attention to ordinary people, local customs, landscapes, and cultural experiences rather than simply recording geographical discoveries. Travel writing became both informative and literary. After the First World War, travel writing changed once again. Instead of focusing only on places, writers began exploring their own emotions and inner experiences. A landmark work of this period is Robert Byron's The Road to Oxiana. It was published in the year 1937. This book combines architecture, humor, history, and personal reflection. The traveler is no longer merely describing the outside world or the landscape. The journey itself becomes a way of understanding oneself. This inward focus greatly influenced modern travel writing. By the late 20th century, travel writing entered the postmodern era. Many writers revisited places already described by early travelers. Instead of discovering new places, they compared the past with the present. An important example is Richard Holmes' Footsteps. Holmes retraced the journeys of earlier writers and reflected on both history and memory. Travel became symbolic at this era. It represented identity, memory, personal transformation, and even the process of writing itself. Thus, travel writing expanded beyond geography into philosophy and literal interpretation. Today, travel writing has entered the digital age. It is no longer limited to books. The travel experience now appear through blogs, YouTube videos, Instagrams, podcasts, photography, and digital documentaries. Modern travel writers combine text, photographs, videos, maps, and social media. However, today's travel writing also carries greater responsibility. Travelers are expected to respect local cultures, protect the environment, avoid stereotypes, and promote ethical tourism. In other words, travel writing today is not simply about showing beautiful places, it is about creating meaningful cultural understanding. I'll repeat, travel writing today is not simply about showing beautiful places, but it is about creating meaningful cultural understanding. Let us quickly summarize what we have learned. So, travel writing has evolved continuously across history. It has begun as stories of migration and survival. It became religious pilgrimage during the Middle Ages. It expanded through exploration and colonial encounters. Later, it developed into educational travel during the Grand Tour, become accessible during Industrial Revolution, turned inward during 20th century, and finally entered today's digital multimedia world. Despite the changes, one thing has remained constant. Travel writing is ultimately about human curiosity, the desire to explore unfamiliar places, understand different cultures, and learn more about ourselves. As the famous quotation by St. Augustine reminds us, the world is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page. Thank you for watching.